Gas station worker let poor mom skip $15 payment and is fired. The next day, a Rolls-Royce pulls up the night the $15 vanished. It felt as if the world finally decided to stop pretending it was fair. The fluorescent lights of the gas station hummed above cracked tiles, the air smelled of fuel and cheap coffee, and one small decision made in silence would shatter a life that was already hanging by a thread. No one noticed at first. No thunder, no sirens. Just a quiet tap on a register, a tired man's choice, and a future that would change forever when a Rolls-Royce pulled in the very next day. Before the story unfolds any further, pause for just a moment. If you believe in kindness when no one is watching, if you believe second chances can change lives, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter because they remind us who we are meant to be. Ethan Cole had worked the night shift at the gas station for nearly 3 years, ever since the factory on the edge of town shut down and swallowed his old job without apology. The station sat at the intersection of a highway and a dying neighborhood, a place where people stopped only because they had no choice. Ethan learned every crack in the floor, every flicker of the lights, and every face that came in at odd hours carrying exhaustion like a second skin. He was 32 with a worn jacket, tired eyes, and a quiet way of moving through the world that came from learning early not to take up too much space. His pay barely covered rent for his small apartment, and groceries that grew cheaper and smaller each week. But he showed up on time, cleaned spills no one else noticed, and treated every customer as if they mattered, because somewhere along the way he decided that dignity shouldn't be conditional. That night had been slow, the kind of slow that made the clock feel like it was mocking him. Rain streaked down, the windows blurring the neon signs outside. Just after midnight, the door chimed and a woman stepped in, her coat soaked, her hair pulled back hastily, eyes darting with nervous energy. A little girl trailed behind her, holding a worn backpack to her chest. The woman's hands trembled as she placed a few items on the counter: bread, a small carton of milk, a pack of diapers, and $10 worth of gas. Ethan scanned the items, the total climbing with each beep until it stopped at $15 more than what the woman slowly pulled from her pocket in crumpled bills and loose change. The woman stared at the screen as if hoping it would change. Her shoulders sagged and she swallowed hard, whispering apologies to no one in particular. She explained in broken sentences that her paycheck had been delayed, that her car was nearly empty, that her daughter had school in the morning, that she would come back tomorrow and pay the rest. Ethan had heard variations of this story before, but something about the way the little girl leaned against her mother's leg, half asleep, pressed against his chest like a weight. He thought about his own childhood, about nights when his mother counted coins at the kitchen table, pretending everything was fine. The rules were clear. Cameras were everywhere. The register tracked every cent. $15 could cost him his job. But as the woman's eyes filled with quiet shame, Ethan made a choice that felt less like rebellion and more like breathing. He cleared the balance, slid the receipt across the counter, and told her it was taken care of. The woman froze, disbelief washing over her face before gratitude broke through like sunlight after rain. She tried to protest, tried to leave something behind, but Ethan gently shook his head. She thanked him more times than he could count, her voice cracking, before ushering her daughter back into the storm. As the door closed behind them, the station returned to its hollow quiet, but Ethan felt strangely lighter, as if he had done something right in a world that rarely rewarded it. The feeling didn't last long. The next morning, before his shift even ended, his manager called him into the back office. The footage had been reviewed. The numbers didn't add up. There was no yelling, no drama, just a flat voice explaining company policy and how kindness didn't pay the bills. Ethan handed over his badge and walked out into the gray dawn with a cardboard box containing his few belongings. The automatic doors slid shut behind him with a finality that echoed in his chest. By the time he reached his apartment, the weight of reality settled in. Rent was due in 2 weeks. His savings were almost gone. $15 had just cost him everything. The day crawled by in a haze. Ethan sat on his couch staring at the wall, replaying the moment over and over, wondering if he'd been foolish, if doing the right thing was a luxury he could no longer afford. Yet beneath the fear and anger, there was no regret. He kept thinking about the woman's face, the relief in her eyes, and somehow that memory steadied him. He updated his resume, sent out applications, and tried to sleep, but anxiety buzzed through him like static. The next morning, he woke early out of habit and decided to take a walk, needing air more than answers. The gas station loomed in the distance, its familiar sign glowing softly. He didn't plan to go inside, he just wanted to remind himself that life continued, even when it felt like it had stalled. As he stood across the street, hands in his pockets, a low, smooth engine sound cut through the morning quiet. A car unlike anything else in the neighborhood rolled into the station, polished black, elegant, unmistakable. A Rolls-Royce. It felt absurd, almost cinematic, like a dream stitched into the wrong place. People slowed to stare. Ethan did too, curiosity outweighing his confusion. The car parked near the entrance, and a man in an expensive suit stepped out, followed by a woman whose presence carried calm authority. They spoke briefly to the current clerk, then turned, scanning the area until their eyes landed on Ethan. His stomach tightened as they approached him directly, calling him by name as if they already knew him. The woman introduced herself as the mother from the night before. Clean, composed, and transformed from the exhausted figure he remembered, she still held the same warmth in her eyes. The man beside her was her brother, she explained, and the owner of several successful businesses. She told Ethan her story, one she hadn't had the strength to share in the moment. She had been escaping an abusive situation, living between shelters, trying to keep her daughter's life stable. That $15 had been the difference between sleeping in her car and reaching a safe place. Her brother had found her the next morning, listened, and insisted on meeting the man who had helped her when no one else would. They had returned to the station expecting to thank him, only to learn he had been fired. What happened next didn't erase Ethan's fear overnight, but it reshaped it. The man offered him a job on the spot, not out of pity, but respect. He spoke about character, about how businesses could teach skills but not values. He explained that he wanted someone who understood the human side of numbers. The salary was more than Ethan had ever earned, with benefits and room to grow. Ethan stood there stunned, the weight of the last 24 hours crashing into disbelief and relief all at once. He accepted, his voice unsteady, realizing that the smallest act of compassion had rippled outward in ways he could never have predicted. As days turned into weeks, Ethan's life began to change, slowly but profoundly. He started the new job, learning the ropes, feeling confidence return with each challenge met. He paid his rent on time, bought groceries without counting every cent, and even helped a neighbor who was struggling. Because kindness no longer felt like a risk, but a responsibility. The woman and her daughter visited occasionally, their bond with Ethan quiet but unbreakable, forged in a moment of shared humanity. The gas station faded into memory, no longer a symbol of loss but the place where everything shifted. What Ethan carried with him most was not the job or the money, but the understanding that doing the right thing doesn't always lead where you expect, but it always leads somewhere meaningful. He learned that the world notices, even when it seems indifferent, and that generosity has a way of returning, often when you need it most. His story spread quietly, not as a headline, but as a reminder passed from person to person, that integrity still mattered. As this story draws toward its end, if it stirred something inside you, if it reminded you of a moment when kindness changed your path or someone else's, please take a second to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. And before we finish, I invite you to comment below and tell us what the story meant to you, or share a time when a small act of kindness made a big difference in your life. Ethan never went back to the gas station as an employee, but sometimes he drove past it, slowing for just a moment. He didn't feel anger anymore, only gratitude. For $15 he never took, he gained a future he never imagined. And somewhere, A little girl slept safely at night, her mother hopeful again, because one tired worker chose compassion over policy. In a world that often feels harsh and unforgiving, that choice became proof that humanity still has the power to surprise, to lift us, and to change everything when we least expect it.